Assalamu alaikum, Aiboan. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Vanakkam. Dr. Rauf Hakim, thank you for the privilege of giving us the opportunity to publish your book. It's nice to be here in Kandy and to address such a distinguished audience. The derogatory word in Sinhala referring to Marakkales is quite well known, but Rauf Hakim in this book reveals that the word Marakkala is derived from the Sinhala phrase Ma Rakkale, meaning the blood that saved me, invoking folklore that narrates about a Muslim woman who gets killed by enemies for saving the king. Ma Rakagatta Le. When the Portuguese were hunting down Muslims, it was the king who gave them protection and allowed them to settle up country to save them. It is these events which led to the Muslims associating very closely with the Sinhala people, though due to tradition, their mother tongue was Tamil. These historic facts are forgotten by rabble-rousers who are only interested in scoring points rather than looking to the future stability of the country. Mr. Hakim talks about the global COVID-19 pandemic, which is devastating Sri Lanka's economy, and is angry that the Muslim community has been singled out, stigmatized and persecuted, and being forced to bear the burden of being labeled disease spreaders for a virus that knows no ethnic, religious, or class boundaries. He says the hysteria of blaming and shaming the Muslim community following the Easter Sunday attacks has taken frightening proportions, and that he fears for his community. He says the book is an effort to critically examine the forces that pull us apart. He is attempting to mitigate the deep cleavages and suspicions between the Sinhala and Muslim communities, and that he is striving to frame the book as a socio-political covenant for the Muslims of Sri Lanka. He argues that Muslims must painfully accept that the Easter Sunday carnage has brought Muslims to a crossroads in history, and feels the time has come to take stock, critical analysis, and delve deep into why, where, and how things went wrong. He says we have to find out what needs to be addressed in our own lives and attitudes for piercing back the parts of the jigsaw that has fallen out to enable the beautiful picture that constitutes one Sri Lanka is restored to the community. Those who talk about the carnage of the eastern province and what happened in the churches forget another aspect. What happened with the Sinhalese in the JVP in 1971 and 1987? What happened with the Christian armed forces, the leaders of the army, police and air force, the 1962 coup, the 1983 Tamil insurrection, which lasted 30 years. What I'm trying to say is that these are processes of growing up as a nation. And unfortunately, rabble-rousers may take initiatives, but in the long run, with 2,500 years of recorded history, the 70 years we have had being led by politicians, Mr. Hakim, we have a long way to go. And we need patience, and we need to see beyond the immediate to the future. Mr. Hakim says that Sri Lanka as a national state has a unique character which has been structured and shaped by Sinhala Buddhism. Forgetting that cardinal principle would be something akin to discussing the French Revolution without reference to the storming of the Bastille. He analyzes at length and tries to answer questions excruciatingly painful to answer. Who are the Muslims? To what do they belong? He is honest enough to admit that by constant defensive posturings, the Muslims have also contributed to the stereotyping of themselves. He says that the book is an attempt to dispel cliches that deride Islam in Sri Lanka and to implore the Muslim community of Sri Lanka to engage in self-reflection as a vibrant constituent of a rural economy. Some issues dealt with in the book include the purported rise of the Muslim population of Sri Lanka and that Muslims will outgrow Sinhala Buddhists. He uses graphics and facts from the Department of Census and Statistics to show that this is not the case and cites the research of Professor Lakshman Disanayake, who is the Professor of Demography and the Vice Chancellor of the Colombo University. Some of the issues he deals with are controversial, as he challenges the notion that Islam and its practitioners are a threat to Sinhala Buddhist culture. Among the many controversial statements in the book is one saying that politics since the end of the war has a lesson and that facts don't matter. He also refers the case of Dr. Shafi from Kurunegala, who was accused of making hundreds of thousands of Sinhala Buddhist women barren by removing their fallopian tubes. He says sarcastically that a Buddhist monk parliamentarian overnight emerged as an expert on fallopian tubes and fertility treatment of women. Kurunegala is in the news again with demolition of part of the building of the Assembly Hall of King Buonekabahu. And there are some who are saying that he was married to a Muslim woman. Where are we going? An important content of the book is the TV debate he had with Uday Kamampilla on Hiru TV in June 2019. The whole debate is published in full in Sinhala, and the reader is able to judge for himself the issues involved and the facts presented therein. On the niqab face cover of Muslim women, the author supports the view that it is nothing to do with Islam. Ironically, there are some countries which banned the niqab, but the arrival of COVID-19 has meant that some countries have now declared that wearing face masks are essential for society. His well-researched book is a valuable contribution to demystifying the myths against the Muslims. There are a lot of references in the book to Islam and Christianity. I like to tell two simple stories actually. One is, he talks about the beginnings of Adam and Eve. If Adam and Eve had been Chinese, what would have happened? It's a question you can ask yourselves. If Adam and Eve had been Chinese, they would have eaten the snake and not the apple. So things would have been very, very different today. The second point I wish to refer to is a friend of mine, Peter Howard, who was a journalist on the Daily Express in London. He wrote a brilliant play called Mr. Brown Comes Down the Hill. If Jesus Christ came down to earth today, what sort of response would he have? And finally, it is the bishops and others in the church who finally decide to kill him because Mr. Brown represented Christ. They all surround him and ask him a question, which I think is something which is very relevant to all of us today. They ask him the same question that Pilate asked Jesus Christ. What is truth? Christ never replied to that question. But in this play, Mr. Brown answers that question. It is the truth is the right you deny and the wrong you justify. Truth is the right you deny and the wrong you justify. Thank you.